Hey everyone, I'm Nick from Coffee Before Arch, and in this episode of C++ Crash Course, we're going to be taking a different direction that will be on for quite a while, and that's we're going to give kind of a tour of the C++ standard library, specifically the C++ 11 standard. So, up until this point, we've mainly shown off, some of the fundamental parts of the language that is included in every part of the standard, so things like for loops, while loops, things like classes. But now we're going to move into the things that are very standard specific, or things that are relatively new that have been included. So to that effect, let's go ahead and open up our example today. So we're going to look at something called auto types. So in languages like Python, they have dynamic typing. So dynamic typing means that they don't have to, in Python, you don't have to say, int a is equal to 5. You can just say a is equal to 5, and then the type of a, is determined based upon what you're assigning it, right? So we know that 5 is an integer, so a is implicitly going to be an integer. So the auto keyword is similar to that, and so we'll see what we can do with that. So we'll go ahead and include a couple things. So we'll include this this new header we haven't seen before for type info, and we'll use this to actually print out the type name of a specific variable, specifically the ones we're using auto on, just to kind of, sanity check it and kind of show off that, what I'm saying is actually true. So this is very similar if you're familiar with Python, using things like type of. So, inside of this int main, let's see what we're doing. So here we have, auto. So instead of a type name like int here, we can just say auto. And, we have a variable name, we'll just call it integer, but this could be A or B or whatever. And we're saying that integer is equal to 42. Now, we know that 42 is an integer, so this auto will actually resolve to be an integer as well. And we'll go ahead and print out that type name here. So the way we do that is by calling type ID of integer, and then we'll call the method name, right? And we'll go ahead and print that out. And we'll say integer is of type, and then it'll print out whatever this resolves to. Now, what name ends up actually being when you print it out, that's implementation specific, so it could vary between compilers. So the next thing we'll do is, we don't just have to assign it some value that has a type and use auto there. We can do something that's a little more creative. So we can also figure out what this type will resolve to if it's the return value of a function. So up here we have a very simple function for multiplication. It just multiplies two doubles together. So, this auto will end up resolving to a double because we know that multiply this function, it only returns a double. So, we'll know even at compile time what this auto has to be. Okay. And so we'll go ahead and print that out as well using this type ID and this .name. But, we don't just have to do, kind of these primitive data types. We don't just have to do floats, ints, chars, etc. We can have, more complex things like objects and structs as well. So here we have, an integer vector called intvec. And what we'll do is we'll actually just, we'll have a variable called iterator, and we'll set it to the iterator we get from a return when we do intvec.begin, right? So this gives an iterator to the beginning of of this vector. So we'll print this out, and we'll see that this auto will resolve to the correct type of being that iterator. But this could be the same thing as if we're doing some kind of assignment of a class, etc. Auto can work there as well, and so it can do some very complex things, and it can simplify, it can make our life a little bit easier. Dynamic typing is a programmability thing. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens, right? So we'll do G++ as always, but now if we want to specify that we're using the C++ 11 standard, we can do dash std is equal to C++ 11. And so that specifies, hey, what I've written is going to, think of it as being part of the C++ 11 standard. So we'll do that, and then -o auto types, and then our input file autotypes.cpp compiled. So let's go ahead and run it. So here we see that integer that we set to be 42, the return is I, so the I will be integer. Again, this is implementation specific for the compiler of what that .name will be. The double precision number will be D, as in double, and then the iterator, iterator, you'll end up getting most likely kind of a mangled name, but you'll see that the type is kind of hidden in there someplace, right? So got GNU CXX17, normal iterator, for vector, right? So it might be a little hard to understand the mangled part that'll happen with C++ compilation, but it'll figure out the correct type. So we end up getting, even though we just said auto, we do get this resolved being an iterator. So that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. Auto types, allow you to have, something kind of similar to dynamic typing in Python. As always, if you want to look at any of this code, feel free to go to github.com/coffeebeforearch, and then under the repositories, we have C++ Crash Course, and we've got links to all the code and the videos over here that are associated with them. So a new folder now. Standard library, here's auto types, and so here's the file we looked at today. So feel free to download this and play around with it, like I said. And then another thing is I'm starting to do some write-ups and some written contents as well. So I'm going to be starting up some tutorials. So for a simple Hello World program, I went ahead and wrote this up, and so there'll be one of these for the videos of every one of the series that I have, minus kind of the lecture series. So feel free to, download this if you want kind of a reference that's written instead of having to click a YouTube video every time you want to learn something. But as always, I'm Nick from Coffee Before Arch, and I hope you have a nice day.